Get started here so that we don't cut the chancellor short. I'm just going to let her get going. This is Chancellor Carroll from the University of Minnesota-Rochester. I'm just going to talk about a special program there.
She's working hard not to pass along some germs. I appreciate that. Good morning, and thank you so much for your interest in the University of Minnesota here in Rochester, and for your specific interest, well, perhaps it's in the donuts and coffee, but I'm glad you're here, and your specific interest in HealthCORE. HealthCORE, CORE is an acronym, and it stands for Community of Respect and Empowerment. And I brought some students with me who are in HealthCORE. I'll tell you just a bit about it, but at the University of Minnesota in Rochester, our students and their learning and development is at the center of everything we do. And so they will be taking some questions from me, and then they'll be open to questions from you, and I'll fill in as well. You may have different levels of awareness of the Rochester campus, what it's about, how long it's been here, so I'll work to be brief in just setting up that frame. The University of Minnesota-Rochester is in its 10th year of serving students, and the campus started with 52 students, and we now have 723. If you do the math, that's a phenomenal growth rate in a time where higher education is really challenged in terms of enrollment with a declining student population. Higher education also has some other challenges. There are many things we do well, and we know that graduates have much to contribute societally and to workforce demands, but that we can do a better job. And a way that we can do a better job is in the area of underrepresented students and their success. The word underrepresented is used to describe students and the demographics of students who have typically not made it through undergraduate education at the same rate as their peers. And that is a national challenge and has always been. And though we do so many things well and beautifully in Minnesota in terms of education, in this area, we are at the bottom of the other states. So the racial disparities and the disparities of students whose families have an income that makes the student Pell eligible, or students who are the first in their family, the first generation to go to college, and students of color. So those are the three categories of underrepresented students. And UMR was commissioned to be the innovation campus of the University of Minnesota in terms of the education. So from the beginning, we put into place research-based practices, and all of the students get all of those practices. As a result, we are one of the few, if not the only in Minnesota, campuses, university campuses, where there is no achievement gap. And I use that term because it's familiar as a way to describe these disparities, but at the same time, it doesn't really describe who's responsible. Those of us who are educators are responsible for this systemic challenge and for confronting it. So about 5 years ago, we had an idea, looking at the research and thinking about how we might do ever better. And that idea has become a living, breathing entity, a community of students, two of whom are here. And though they have an exam that is due by midnight today, they came to talk to you. I think that deserves a round of applause before we even get started. And the exam is in pathology, due by midnight. So just a little breather from studying, and then back to 318 Commons and onward with the studying. I'll describe the community and then ask our students a few questions. So among the other high impact or research-based practices that we have in place, we piloted this one starting about 4 years ago, and it is a covenant-based community. students sign a covenant to be committed to one another and to one another's success. In addition, to holding each other accountable for academic and other kinds of success, they take their coursework together, particularly in the first 2 years, traveling through as a cohort. They live together across all kinds of diversity of language and culture and other background variables, and they lead together for our campus on issues of diversity and inclusion. And these two have been there from the beginning, and they are phenomenal leaders. One fast fact about the University of Minnesota-Rochester is that we surprised ourselves by being predominantly female. And that could change, but it is a phenomenon across the United States. Our focus is in health very broadly. I can describe that later if you're interested, or you have questions, or we have time for that. But one of the great joys for me is knowing that as we educate our students, we are educating leaders for healthcare for the future. And while there are many women, even a majority, in the vast array of healthcare fields, there are very few who are leading. And so I'm enthused to be a part of the journey with these young women who are already leading. And so I'm going to start with ask you to introduce yourself. If you care to stand up, you can, or you can stay seated, whatever's more comfortable. And tell us a bit about your background and how you decided to come to the Rochester campus of the University of Minnesota. We'll start with you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sam. I'm from a town very far away. It's Rochester, Minnesota. I actually went to school in Byron, Minnesota though. And when I was growing up, my whole family, all of them went to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And in middle school, I never told a lot of people this, but I used to wear gopher clothes every single day up until senior year of graduating high school, just because I thought I was also going to be a gopher, and I was just going to be devoted to that because that was my family history. But it wasn't until I went to a visiting day at the University of Minnesota-Rochester that things really changed for me. I got a tour of the campus and I saw how small the class sizes were and how the faculty really cares and is focused on the students. And going into the health field, I felt that I really needed that more intimate connection with my faculty, just so I can go up to them and feel comfortable asking them questions. So I decided to come to the University of Minnesota-Rochester, and it's a decision I have never regretted. I have that one-on-one help that I wanted. We have something that's called Just Ask, where the professors will all be sitting in a specific area, and you just go up to them, and it's an environment where you can just ask questions on the classes you're in. And I like it better that way because it's a more laid back and chill environment. And also, when I came to the University of Minnesota-Rochester, I got the opportunity to be in HealthCORE, and we'll kind of describe that more later, but it's a phenomenal learning living community, and I'm forever grateful that I'm in that, and it's definitely my favorite reason why I'm at the University of Minnesota-Rochester.
My name is Mason Schleif. I am from Lowry, Minnesota, which is in the elbow of Minnesota. If you think of the map, we're a town of under 200 people, so super rural, everyone knows each other, local, everyone is just kind of family. I graduated from a high school where my graduating class was 85, and I knew almost every single one of my classmates. So when I was looking for a university to go to, I knew for sure, like, medicine was no question. I had been involved with our local hospital, which gave me a lot of opportunities to shadow, be involved with the ambulance service, which I loved, and a couple other opportunities. So medicine for sure was my go-to. But I too was thinking Twin Cities campus is where I want to be. That was like my top goal. If I get into anywhere, I want to get into the Twin Cities. And I applied to a bunch of schools and was accepted to many of them. But when I ended up touring, the first school I toured was UMR. And that was a very interesting day because it was my mom and I, and we had no idea what we were walking into at all, other than it was former students that were looking into pre-med and that it was a very unique campus, which it definitely lived up to those expectations. But throughout that day, I immediately felt this connection with our campus because they stressed how important connections are between the community, between coworkers, between peers, staff and faculty. And that's something that when people asked me what I wanted out of a university, that was the top thing I wanted. I wanted to make connections with people. So when they mentioned that, I was like, sign me up, give me the paper, I'm in. You literally spoke what I was thinking. And from there, I actually came back and toured a second time with the rest of my family so they could check it out. And again, it was, small class sizes, which reminded me a lot of home, which I really valued, so I could get that one-on-one help when I needed it, especially going into the medical field. And then just the value that they showed about student success was something that I also really appreciated. And then, like Sam said, I got the incredible opportunity to be a part of HealthCORE, and I did not know what I was getting myself into there either when I applied, but in retrospect, that is honestly if I got nothing out of my education in my undergraduate career, HealthCORE has by far been the biggest impact on my life. It has not only given me a family of people that are not only just incredible people, but they are some really special and intelligent individuals. And then at the same time, being that I came from a rural area where everyone looked like me, we were all Scandinavians, and everyone was related somehow by their third cousins and their grandparents. When I came into HealthCORE, that was the first time that I had ever been in an area where there was no one else that looked like me. And so that experience of learning what it's like to be the only one, but also be in an area where you're really supported, was something that I will never forget, and I'm really, really grateful for.
Can you tell already why I love my job? To get to hang out with people like this. So a couple of other pieces of information based on what our students Sam and Mason were just saying. One is that cozy feeling and the tight relationships with faculty. You may think, well, that's nice, there's some really dedicated faculty members there, and that's true. But it's also highly intentional. So we use the research on what works in education so that we have all of this relational stuff available. It isn't just nice people being nice and caring about their jobs. We've got that. But our faculty, all of them, do their primary research on student learning and development, student success. So we have a large database and we track everything about all of our students and their interactions, and we learn from what the data are telling us, and so we adjust. And right now, because we are one of the few campuses in the country with no achievement gap, it's generally a 20-point differential by race. That it's completely unacceptable. And so we have this privilege of being a demonstration case for what can work. And at the heart of what's working are three practices that are all about relationship. First, it's the living learning communities that are about peer relationships, creating accountability and a sense of belonging. Maybe you think that's common sense, and yet we need to structure to be sure that that's in place. Another relationship is with the student's life coach. So every student has a success coach who travels with them for the full 4 years and provides life coaching, academic advising, career exploration, and basic major crisis processing. So that life coach relationship is another key variable in the success. And then, as Sam mentioned, the Just Ask Center. And that really epitomizes the way we're doing instruction. So everything in class, almost everything, is what we call flipped. Students have to be ready when they come to class. It's applied, it's in teams, and the knowledge that they need to do the work in class is ascertained outside of class. And with that kind of model, based in the research on what works in neuroscience and learning, students have to have access to the professors. And so we don't have faculty in office hours 2 hours a week where you have to go hunt for them, and rather they're seated out and available throughout the day in the Just Ask Center so that students can be prepared for class. But that fuels terrific relationships, so with the faculty, with the coaches, and with each other. And those relationally based practices are what is making this work and closing the achievement gap. So, you've told us a little bit about why you came, and I'm so glad that you did. And now I'd like you to focus specifically on your HealthCORE experience. So being in a community of people who live together and learn together, taking their classes together, and lead together on issues of diversity and inclusion while working across all kinds of differences. 38% students of color, 12% have a refugee story in their background of our student body, and 90% of our alumni have graduated in 4 years or less. Just want to throw that out there. 90% in 4 years or less. It's rigorous, every class is relevant, and it's a highly relational model. So what does that look like from the inside out? Tell us something about your HealthCORE experience, how it's supported you, or challenged you, or both. Sam?
Yeah, so when I first came to HealthCORE, I was told that I was going to be in a group with 30 other people, and I thought, it's such an amazing opportunity. I'm coming to college. I don't know anyone who's going to be with me, and automatically I'm going to have 30 people in this learning living community who I'm going to live on the same floor with. So I was like, sign me up, I will be there. And so I get to the floor the first day of 318 Commons, and I walk in and I see my two roommates. Both of my roommates are Hmong, and I've never heard of Hmong people in my life. So I was all for curiosity at that point. I questioned them. I just asked, what are your traditions? What are your values? And that night they cooked a meal and they asked me if I wanted to eat with them. And that's how we got to bond. Our very first night was just sharing a meal together from their culture. And from there we had neighbors, and all of them were also Hmong, and all of us became like one big group. And from that I got to learn their language more, their traditions. I can speak their language, I can cook their food. Oftentimes now when I go home, I cook Hmong food for my family. They're all very impressed. And also very grateful, it's good food. Just from HealthCORE though, I got to learn so much about other people's cultures and traditions, and I also got to share my culture and my traditions, because we like to say that we're Jubin. It's not a real word, but it's Jewish and Cuban. So I get to spread my Cuban roots with people, introduce them to my dishes. A lot of the community, they like a dish that's called arroz con pollo. It's chicken and rice. It's a really good meal, and people crave it now. And also just the Jewish side of things, I like to introduce them to really dry and crumbly food, because that's what a lot of Jewish food is. And just through that, also getting to learn together, our first year we all have the same classes, so we all are in the same classes, we're doing the same homework, and something that I found that I'm really good at is statistics, and a lot of my people in the LLC were struggling with statistics, so before an exam I would sit in a study room and really I would learn by myself how I could explain statistics to my peers, and then later that night we would sit in my apartment room and there would be a ton of us there, and I would just go over every single lesson and make sure that it made sense for everyone there. And from that, I hope that they got better test results. And people did the same thing for me. Like, I struggled with chemistry, organic chemistry, and those who were good, I would sometimes come to them at 2 in the morning because it's college and a lot of people are awake still at 2 in the morning. And I would go to them for organic chemistry help, and through that, I was held accountable and my grades improved. And something I was actually really scared about was in high school I didn't have the best ACT scores, and I was scared I wasn't going to succeed in college, but through this learning living community and having people hold you accountable for your work, I've exceeded far beyond my expectations, and I'm forever grateful for the 30 people in my community.
Thank you, Sam. I just want to note that as part of our evidence-based practice, our admissions process is holistic, and while Sam worried about her ACT score, and we know that there's some predictive quality there, particularly related to the math subset. What we have included in our holistic review is the variable of resilience. So all students who wish to come here write a statement we call the passion statement. What was the catalyst for your passion to want to do something in health? And that passion statement is scored for a demonstration of perseverance. That is part of getting in. So we know that resilience is a predictor of student success. For students to get into HealthCORE, there's an additional competition. And that competition is a 3-minute pitch, a story. We have something called HealthCare Scholars Day, the first Saturday of February. Students come, they get 3 minutes to pitch, telling their story of the catalyst for their passion for health and demonstrating their perseverance. And let me assure you that Sam was exceptionally qualified, and she has only demonstrated that excellence day by day by day as she has been here. But the curriculum is rigorous. We start with statistics and organic chemistry, sociology, medical ethics in the first semester. So no developmental courses. This support from one another, the covenant they sign. One of the things we do, very different than when I remember my brother, who is an engineer, older than I, when we went to his college orientation, they said, look to your left, look to your right, only one of you will still be standing at the end of the year. Anybody heard stuff like that in the past, right? But we say, look to your left, look to your right, link arms. We're all going forward, we're all going to succeed, and these folks who are with you in this community and in this journey at UMR will eventually be your colleagues, and you'll be innovating and transforming healthcare into the next decade. And that's what we want to have happen. All right, so thank you, Sam, for sharing that. And I'm sure glad that you are at UMR. Mason?
I am too, actually, Sam. So as I mentioned a little bit before, for me the biggest thing that I was worried about going into college was making connections with people. When I was in high school, I was kind of that person that went around to different social groups and didn't really fit in one spot, but was just kind of a little bit of everything. And I was honestly terrified that I was going to go to this university and not find anybody that was like me. In a sense of like the things I enjoy, the things I value. And HealthCORE gave me that without any question. As I mentioned, in the first part of our Summer Bridge program, which is a 2-week program where we've expanded it to LLCs, but primarily in my first year it was HealthCORE. We came in 2 weeks early and we were exposed not only to team building and community building, but also some of the curriculum that we'd be seeing, like statistics. And those 2 weeks were incredibly difficult, I think, for all of us, just being in the transition between high school and college, but also trying to find that space that you fit in next to the people in your community. And from after that awkward moment of realizing I'm the only person that looks like me in this room, and I don't know how to interact with people that don't look like me without insulting them or saying something wrong, after getting over that, everything was just smooth. Everyone was so open. They always were asking questions, even really weird questions, especially about food. When it comes to food, that was like our big thing, was what's in your food? How spicy is this? Like scale 1 to 10 and then bring it down to like Mason level, which is black pepper spicy? And I know Sam knows about that one pretty well. But I was able to build those deep connections with my cohort and know that regardless of the situation, even into my third year now, although we've kind of drifted apart, found other friend groups, I still feel that deep connection and deep root with my cohort, which is something that is really powerful for me. So especially when I'm struggling with courses or family stuff or just everyday life, I can know that I'm still being supported, whether or not they're standing right next to me or they're in the classroom corner or we're at a meeting together. So that's one of the big things I've gotten out of it. The second thing is learning more about other cultures. Man, oh my gosh, that was incredible. Obviously, a lot of it was learning from food, which was our big communicator, was sharing food and experiences, which for me at the beginning was really difficult because I thought, oh, I'm just like a run-of-the-mill Minnesotan. I don't know, you betcha and some lutefisk and stuff like that. But then I realized that not everybody knows what lutefisk is, which, I mean, good for them, but some people like lutefisk, and for some people that is a really integral part of their family. So after I started to learn about other people, I began to look into my background and where I come from and my culture, and understanding that culture is a lot more than just the color of your skin, your race, your religion. It's literally your background. It's the way you're raised. It's the community that you lived with when you were little. All those things, and it really cleared things up for me too, and gave me confidence to know that I can be proud of the lutefisk and lefse that my family makes every year, and that is an important culture. That is something that's really valued, and not everyone knows about that. So being able to tell people about your background, your experiences, not only do you learn in explaining that and like evaluating it yourself, but they also learn as well, which I experienced over and over and over again in HealthCORE, which gave me confidence, but also made me feel incredibly supported by my peers. So overall, I mean, like I said before, if I got nothing out of my, otherwise out of my education at UMR, HealthCORE by far has been the biggest impact on my life so far. So.
Could you two just share some of the backgrounds that are represented among your peers in HealthCORE?
Yeah, so we have, as backgrounds go, Somalis, Hmong, Pakistani, Indian, Vietnamese, Thai, Laos, Laotian, Nigerian, Kenyan, Ghana.
From that little list, let us take heart and be hopeful for our world. These young people are living together. They have conflictual interactions and they work through them. They are friends, deeply bonded, probably that's permanent. And they have a common purpose, not only in their humanity, but in their commitment to the value of diversity to spur innovation, and in their desire to make a difference in the world is something they all have in common. And it can happen, right? Our world is not divided in HealthCORE. I'm so excited to hear you talk about it. All right, so before we open it up to questions from our listeners, I wonder if you could just tell us now, as juniors who've been planning your capstone, our senior year is completely customizable, which makes for all the different career pathways that are possible. What you're planning and what you see in your future, which may have shifted since your childhood dreams. So Sam?
So when I first came into UMR, I wanted to be a dentist, and now at the end of my career, I am now towards the goal of becoming a psychiatric nurse practitioner. So it changed fairly greatly, but that's just what UMR did to me. It opened my eyes up to what's actually out there and what actually aligns with my interests, and for me, mental health is that thing that gets me up in the morning. And so for my capstone, for my final year, what I want to do is I'm going to be doing a directed study with one of the faculty, and we're going to be going to Genros in the adolescent unit, and we're going to be doing sessions on creative writing and creative thinking to help these adolescents explore that pathway within themselves, and hopefully that helps in the treatment process. Something else I'm going to do is I'm going to study abroad in Lisbon, Portugal, the spring semester of my senior year. And that's just because when people study abroad, I've never heard of anyone really going to Lisbon, Portugal. So I was like, and then I looked up the country, I'm like, this is such a beautiful country, why is no one going here? So I kind of just wanted to be different and go somewhere where no one at UMR has gone before, and hopefully I bring back a positive experience, which I know I will.
So I am actually in my capstone right now. I am doing a year-long capstone because I graduate this fall, which is super scary, but it is happening. So my capstone is focused on trying to expose me to as many new perspectives as possible, because in HealthCORE, that's exactly what I've gotten. I've been exposed to different perspectives, and I want to continue to learn about other people's perspectives so that in healthcare I can try to help them in a way that's far more beneficial when you can see through their eyes and understand their experience rather than looking at the person in front of you and then going from there. So my capstone is focused on finishing up some prerequisites for nursing programs, which, as Sam mentioned, when I first came to UMR, I wanted to be an ER doctor, and I knew 100% that was what I was going to do, no question. Through UMR, I have gone through considering just being a doctor in general to being a physician's assistant. And then my most recent decision was that I was going to go for a master's in nursing. But actually, in the past month, I don't know now where I'm going to be going, other than I know for sure I want to go into grad school. I know I want to go into medicine, but I just don't know where I quite fit yet. So now, additionally, part of my capstone is trying to find that spot where I feel like I fit and I have a passion, and I wake up in the morning and I'm excited about whatever that thing is to get me through. So that's something that I'm also working on, so gaining perspective from other careers, other positions. And then the next thing on my capstone list is I have the opportunity to study abroad in Thailand in May, so that's right around the corner. I'll be there for a month for a service learning project and study abroad program through the Twin Cities campus and their center for, it's their learning abroad center. So I'm really excited about that. I've never been outside of the country, so again, more exposure to perspectives and just overall learning about another culture and way of life that I could have never imagined. And then the last thing, in my fall semester, my last semester at UMR, my goal is to create some sort of programming or mentorship opportunity in some aspect. I've had a couple different ideas, one of which trying to create a mental health first aid class that's available to all students. I have helped coordinate it for our HealthCORE students, and I've gotten some really good feedback. I've personally been involved with the course and I'm certified, but I want to try to expand that because I personally don't see why as many people as possible are exposed to mental health first aid so they can help each other. Or a mentorship opportunity, or an internship. I'm really open to pretty much anything because that's, for me, the best way to go. And then when I graduate, like I said, I plan on attending some sort of graduate program. I know that mental health is something that I deeply love as well, and I'm passionate about. But again, just finding that specific career is the rest of my year here. So, yep.
Thank you both. Are there questions for Mason or for Sam or for me? Yes.
When you said that you have a 90% graduation rate, is that within the HealthCORE program or even more in general?
The university in general. So let me be really clear about that outcome. It is of those who have graduated thus far, so our alumni, all 6 classes of them, no one yet over 30. That's our alumni base. Over 90% completed in 4 years or less. So this is not only appropriate for a 4-year degree, but bucking the trend in higher education that it takes 6 years to complete a 4-year degree, which are the national graduation rates that are released by undergraduate campuses are 6 years completion. So as you could predict, that can have something to do with debt and overall cost. And so keeping the curriculum focused and doable within 4 years, we make everything health relevant. So we have philosophy class, we have literature class, but it's medical ethics is philosophy, and literature is looking back at literature that is health connected and so forth. So we're highly intentional about the curriculum to make those 4 years possible. And yet many of our students, like Mason, are completing in 3.5 years. We would make the undergraduate degree a 3-year, year-round if the federal financial aid laws would cooperate, but financial aid not provided, particularly Pell-eligible students, in the summer, and so we're pushing on those federal policies and looking to be a pilot. But yes, of those who have graduated from UMR, 90% have done so in 4 years or less. We're very proud of that. Yeah. We're proud of the students. And so it's not just the curriculum and all that stuff I just said. They work their tails off. Yes.
So is HealthCORE a subset of the student population?
That's correct.
And these are the students that are going to end up with a neuroscience degree, or what would you graduate with? Bachelor's in what?
Yes. So there are 2 degrees. One is the Bachelor of Science in Health Sciences, and that is the general degree with all the pathways, which I can describe momentarily. And then there's a Bachelor of Science in Health Professions, which is a joint program with the Mayo Clinic School of Health Sciences. And those are for specific certifications within the broader undergraduate degree, like sonography. In our Bachelor of Science in Health Professions, so far 100% of the graduates are employed in their fields. Now, I know at some point some kid's going to make a different decision. I won't get to say that anymore, but I love saying it. In the Bachelor of Science in Health Sciences, most of our graduates from this general degree are going on to graduate or professional school. Sometimes they step out into undergraduate research or post-bac research with Mayo or as scribes before they go on. But that is the pathway that they're going on. They go on in 6 general pathways. The one that you would automatically think of is patient care. So all of those possibilities that have been mentioned here, like dentistry and psychiatry and every kind of physician and nurse practitioner and PA and all of that. Patient care. Then there's research and discovery. So our students come to us curious, and we fuel that. 100% of the students do undergraduate research beginning in the first year. So curiosity is really important to us, as is creativity, because the future demands innovation, not the memorization of facts, right? So that's a second pathway. Then the resilience, well-being, and mental health. And just in the last 5 years, things have really changed in that space. And overall in the University of Minnesota, all 5 campuses, 39% of the students incoming first year are diagnosed with a mental health challenge, primarily anxiety and depression. But these students come to us with a passion to make a difference, and we think it's in the resilience and well-being space, and we're looking at the science of that. So that's a third pathway. Then we have the business and leadership of healthcare as a pathway, emerging health technologies, and global health and public policy. So those are our pathways within 1 degree. So rather than adding on majors and minors, which is the traditional and quite expensive way, instead we're looking at the competencies. Cultural competence and measuring that, and cultural humility, creativity and critical thinking, and so forth. So thank you for asking that question about our degrees. We're doing it differently, and the goal is to do it differently to do it better. So other questions? Yes?
Way back, many years ago, I had the fortune to be on a committee that planned for UMR.
Thank you.
And so we were delighted with the first 50 students and overjoyed when we hit 150. So it's now very good to hear your thing. But I have to tell a story that girls would like, I think.
Let's give you a microphone.
Okay, way back 100 years ago when I was on the committee that started UMR here, one of the most popular questions that we had from the community when we said we were working to bring a college here, but we hoped the university would come down. The question was, are you going to have a football team? And so we devised a response. No, this is a medically oriented, and sports will not be a big thing, but we might consider t-ball teams.
Thank you, and I still get that question. So certainly sports in college bond people and give us something to root for. It's kind of the front porch for some people to enter into an environment of learning. And here, well-being is important to us. We're in partnership with the Y to provide opportunities for our students. We do have a ballroom dance team, and I'd like to see some curling going on, but probably not going to be football. But thank you so much for that work. And we live daily aware that for decades, people work to bring a campus here, and we want you to be proud. There are some grounding values, and at the top of the list is community. And we intend to contribute to the community and to carry that value forward as a result of the work that was done. Any other questions for our students or for me? Yes?
I congratulate you on your growth so far, and I know there have been some ups and downs along the way. What do you consider your optimal size eventually?
Right. So we have just completed a process of long-range planning that we call the Bluff Top View Project. So the idea, of course, is to climb to the highest bluff in southeastern Minnesota and look out as far as we could look. And the view in the distance, as you have all seen from bluffs around this area, the view is breathtaking. And what we were doing is a backwards design process from that look. What would we look like long term? Then we climb back down the bluff and get busy paddling with the next stage of the journey. And we have 3 phases to that journey. And they are bold, bolder, and boldest. And the bold phase is a growth to 1,000 students, bolder 1,500, that long range view 2,500. And though there is great interest in the quantity of students and the facilities, what we really want to do is let quality drive quantity. The facilities are there to support learning. It is the results, the outcomes that we must sustain. And as we sustain them, we will also grow. And we're being intentional about that with the pathways. But it's quality first. So that's the goal. So, any final questions? Yes?
Is your HealthCORE approach being evaluated to be implemented in the other branches?
Yes, so I mentioned just briefly that our faculty all do their primary research on student learning and development. So they are publishing results on what's working. And we had our first Higher Education Innovation Summit a year ago. That's going to be every other year. I recently had a conversation with Dr. Toller, Dean of the Medical School, and he is working to implement 3 of our high impact practices. Of course, doing it at scale, like at the Twin Cities campus, is a challenge of change management. And be aware, you know, educators everywhere want to have this kind of quality outcome, but changing after our decades or 100 years of a way of doing things is a much more difficult process. And our privilege was start from scratch, do it right, do it research-based, and look at the beautiful things that emerge. But that is in our mission, to transform higher education through innovations that empower our young people to be the future of healthcare. So both things, doing quality education, what I tell the staff and faculty every day, every interaction with every student, be evidence-based and exemplary. That's what we do. And as a result of the research we're doing on that process, transform higher education in terms of cost and quality and outcomes. So, gosh, I hope so is the answer. All right, well, thank you so much for being interested. Let's hear it for Mason and Sam. They're going back to 318 Commons to get busy studying. We have to pry them away, and we did today because of your interest. Thank you.